night. Welcome to another Dead by Daylight review. I am Q, your host, or something along that script. Dead by Daylight reviews, let's go. We have a little bit of things to look at today. Let's see, going from the bottom. If Dead Horde was removed, wouldn't care unless they replaced it, or if they replaced it with something else of equivalent value. Smudge Sticks brought back to life. Evil Within 2 brought back to life. Voodoo Doll brought back to life. What tier is the new Gearhead? It's very meh. I'd say, I want to say C tier, but I'll give it B tier because they took away the obsession activation on it. Yeah, that's about where I was at C tier. It's not super great, but it's also, it's not trash, but it's about average. I'm not going to change my answer or anything. I gave it something good and that'd be it. We got one new comment on Critty's post. He put in a change log. Reformatted power with added table of contents. This power was a nightmare to format without it. Trust me. I know it was a nightmare to try to get everything together reading it. Tweak numbers of Ash's wings, added passive charge to Ash's wings. Bolded the consistencies across all the projectiles for emphasis and to break up the power. Reworked burnout. Tweak number of Scorch Hook promises. Reworked Hex Hellfire. Tweak numbers of Immortal Mark. Added the deafen effect Angel's Rend. Reformatted power with added table of contents. Let's see what this table of contents is. 1 being the charge system, 2 being the projectile, 3 consistencies across all projectiles, 4 cooldowns and canceling, 5 stages. This is a work in progress. So the charging system, all of that put in charge wise. 2 yeah. Well, yeah, this isn't work in progress. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you're doing the particular discussion, if you click on this and you go to ordered list, it adds the 1 and all of that to it. I hit enter because if you hit enter twice, it makes it go away. You gotta put something there. So 1, A, 2, B, 3, C, 4D, 5E, and then you just hit enter twice to get rid of it. Like I said, it's obvious that he's working on it and it's a work in progress, getting the table of contents and all of that done, but tool wise, you can do this inside of the actual paragraph and all of that to change the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and add that to your concept. So where you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that you wrote out manually and bullet points, you can get rid of the bullet points, replace those with numbers, and as you start these, you can put the actual 1 heading there, and then when you get down to the projectiles, wherever they are, let's say here, it'll have the 2, and you can go down and do the 3, and then you can go the 4 and the 5 and all of that by using the heading system. So there is a way to not have to type out all the numbers and all of that and have the bullet points, then the numbers, unless you want them both. But that's just a little on the side note that the tools that you have, you can change the bulletins to numbers and then add numbers to each section. So you can have an actual marked table of contents marking what everything else does. Obviously, this is a work in progress, so I'm not too harping about it, like pressing the double enter to get rid of that, like all of that. He's working on it. Let's see. So, table of contents, very nice ad. Tweet numbers of Asha's wings. We get here stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.5. This is the small vertical wave. Oh, that's PNG. Tweak numbers of Asha's wings. Oh, he just means the actual numbers to get. All right, all right. I misunderstood. I thought he limited the number of projectiles, but no, he just tweaked the numbers actually in the thing. 3.5 seconds, fire 33%. Base attack, charges per second. 11%. It was 11%, 22%, and 33%. So that's the same. 25, 30, and 35 are the same. There's 10%, 3, 6, and 9. No matter the amount of charge drained, the wave will pass through survivors and continue to its maximum range. However, all of its effects are half for each survivor. No, that was already there before. Well, the continue to its maximum range might have been added, but I'm pretty sure this, for the most part, was already there. 1 second, window off, over the course of 2. This is the same. 0.4, 11.2 meters per second, 0.6. All of this is the same. It must have changed something in the add-ons. Or he fucked up and didn't hit save. I've done that before. Yeah, the tweak numbers of Asha's wings, I'm not actually seeing any changes there. It all looks the same. I could have missed something or overlooked it, but I'm not particularly seeing the change there in the numbers. Added passive charge to Ash's wings. Oh, never mind. That was done before. I thought this was a new change log. No, this is just edited 17 of January, not, okay. So this was the change that was up there. I thought he changed it again, but no. All of this I've seen before. All of that. Bolded the consistencies across all of the projectiles for emphasis and to break up the power. Straightforward. That about the maximum range and half the effect. Okay. There is more that can be bolded, but I'm assuming this is a work in progress. Reworked burnout. This. Burnout. You can increase the percentage without any consequence. A killer has to waste a lot of time to get an effect. Oh wait, this is Peeman shit. Jesus. After breaking a pallet says breakable wall, this perk gains 1 token up to a maximum of 6 tokens. When you damage a generator, this perk loses all of its tokens and the generator loses 4% of its progress token or per token loss. This does not stack. um um so I know what you're trying to say, that this does not stack. It doesn't stack with like pop and other perks and things like that. But putting the effect that this does not stack, well, I guess it could be does not stack to the cooldown ends too. Well, this could actually mean 3 things. One, this does not stack, meaning that, well, no, because the cooldown doesn't affect that. This next time a survivor interacts with generator affected by burnout, it's blocked by 10 seconds. It's not 10 seconds by token, it's just a flat 10 seconds. Block generators are shown to you in white. Obviously, damaging a generator, decreasing its power, and then having the survivor interact with the generator, block it, is not very savvy. Plus, showing the actual generator being blocked, shown to the killer. Way too many effects stacked at once. Especially to only have a 60-second cooldown. So for every 60 seconds, you can have a maximum of 24% regression on a generator, which is about 25%, so about 20 seconds worth of generator knockback. Block a survivor that's going to work on said generator for 10 seconds. And then it gives the killer the ore reading from the distance for that 10 seconds, saying that, hey, this generator has been blocked. The survivor just touched it. All of this power that you're gaining over the measly cooldown of 60 seconds and the measly activation of breaking pallets and breakable walls doesn't equate to a very balanced perk. Last time I went over this, well, I revisited the power, I didn't revisit the perks. And then the first time I was more harping about the power, and didn't really pay much attention to the perks to actually give it a honest review, because it was frazzling going over everything for 2 hours and then having to essentially go over it again. So revisiting this the third time, let's go more into the perks. Burnout, I don't know what you could do to balance this, because it doesn't make any sense making it into a hex perk. It doesn't make any sense making it into a Scorch Hook perk. But it doesn't make any sense leaving it as a regular perk, too. You almost need to invent a special kind of perk set to run a perk like this. Because it's a weak hex. It doesn't make sense at all going onto a Scorch Hook. So I guess if you made the hooking on a Scorch Hook an activation to actually use the tokens, because that would help 3-gen situations and things like that, but you could. So I guess Scorch Hook could give you this if the activation is hooking a survivor on the Scorch Hook. So you would have to breaking pallets and all of that gives you tokens. Hooking a survivor on a Scorch Hook gives you the activation to use said tokens. The does not stack prevents you from stacking tokens and all of that, or effect of that, the effects over and over and over. So once you do get that hook, you have to use said tokens for the most part. Hmm. And Scourge Hook applies a curse technically to the survivors. So this actually, I guess, would make some sort of sense making it a Scorch Hook activation. Because one, when it comes to 3-gens and things like that, when you can literally block the progress of the decrease the generator progress, and then when a survivor goes back to it, block it, and it lets you know that the particular generator they're going back to. So if there's, say, 2 survivors left, this perk's kind of a whammy. When it comes to 1 survivor being left, I guess it technically don't matter, because once you close hatch, it's endgame. So the 2 survivors being left is where this perk's really heavily unbalanced. 1 survivor left's not gonna matter, and if it's a 3-gen situation, and it doesn't matter how many survivors are left when it comes to the 3-gen situation. The second way this does not stack could be this does not stack it being there in the middle is what throws me off, because there's no way for it to stack with itself, because it's a cooldown of 60 seconds. So that removes the ability of you, say, breaking a pallet, going to a generator, hitting it just to block it for 10 seconds, running over, breaking a pallet, because then you can't hit it again for 60 seconds. So this does not stack has to be specifically targeted to Pop Goes the Weasel and other perks like that. But saying that this does not stack with Pop Goes the Weasel and other things like that, and making it a token perk, the effect that it does not stack means no matter how many tokens you have, you're only going to get 4% of its progress at any given time because of how it's worded. Because it says this perk loses all of its tokens and the generator loses 4% of its progress per token lost, but it does not stack. So it's going to sack dump however many tokens that you have, but the effect on these tokens does not stack because this does not stack right next to the loses all of its tokens for 4% power. It's going to make you lose all of your tokens and it's only going to hit it for 4% of its progress, regardless of how many tokens you have and regardless of how it's worded. This kind of goes back to the ordering thing that I've been harping about. This does not stack and all of this should be somewhere towards the bottom at a different heading or a different, something to show that it's on a side note. This perk does not stack with, Pop Goes the Weasel or any other gen-related perks, etc., etc., should be in the bottom instead of saying this does not stack. I'm talking strictly from coding language and things like that. How this goes in, or how this is going to go in, and how the logic's going to find its way through this. Now, as a human, obviously, there's only two ways this can go. It doesn't stack with Pop. It either doesn't stack with itself, or it doesn't stack with some unknown, third thing, or fourth thing, third or fourth thing that I'm not thinking of at the moment. Yeah, the only thing I could really think of off the top of my head, and that's still grasping for straw, or grasping at straws, trying to get lucky, reaching for the stars. Another analogy is have pallets and all of that give you tokens, and then have the activation be off of a Scorch Hook. Or off a down survivor. It gives you the power or something like that, something that you have to do survivor related. It's just being able to break a breakable door and then block a generator for 10 seconds. Or go around hitting breakable doors in the main building at the start of a game, targeting a generator. If a survivor drops a pallet on you, do the things that survivors do. You just being able to take that power, kick the generator, apply this effect, and then continue chasing the survivor. Unhindered or anything like that. I don't know. Let's see what Pyman says about burnout. I'm curious on his analogy and how things are going to work. You can increase the percentages without any consequence. A killer has to waste a lot of time to get an effect similar to Pop Goes the Weasel with its current state, but other than that, it's good. The fact you mentioned it doesn't stack makes it an even higher requirement. Makes this an even higher requirement. You can increase the percentage without any consequence, he says. The killer has to waste a lot of time to get an effect similar to Pop Goes the Weasel. All he has to do is get a hook What do you mean he has to waste a lot of time? He has to play the game normally and get a milestone, which is hooking a survivor. There are 12 milestones that you can get in the game from hooking survivors. So you have to achieve an accolade, being again said hook survivor, to get the activation of Pop Goes the Weasel. Let me pop this up. Pop it up. Pop Goes the Weasel. For those of you that don't know, after hooking a survivor, Pop Goes the Weasel activates. The next generator you damage instantly loses 25% of its regression. Regular generation regression applies afterwards, and Pop Goes the Weasel deactivates. So you lose, or the survivors lose 25% of their regression, and if they do not go back to said generator, they're going to lose 1% every 4 seconds after that. Another thing to pay attention to. Pop Goes the Weasel activates for the next several seconds. That's not. There we go. I was about to say 30 seconds ain't right. You only have 45 seconds to use this particular perk. So after you hook a survivor, if you got another survivor in front of you and all of that, and you're chasing them and all of that for 45 plus seconds, you lose your ability of Pop Goes the Weasel. It's done. A lot of people say 45 seconds is a lot, but trust me, it's really not if you actively have a survivor running around, which is why most people run like barbecue and chili with Pop. So when you hook somebody, you have a targeted generator that has active progress on it that you can decrease. Because if you go gen patrolling afterwards and you don't happen to run across a generator that has, you know, at least 25% progress on it, you're essentially wasting your Pop Goes the Weasel activation. And by the time you check a couple of generators, if you find a survivor at the third generator, you have to use that Pop Goes the Weasel activation. So you can't just immediately go back to chase. You have to use the activation, or if you go on chase, you're going to completely lose the activation and the 25% regression. So Pop, you have to achieve the milestone of hooking a survivor. So you are rewarded for your actions. 2, you have to find a generator that has progress on it. Pop Goes the Weasel by itself obviously ain't very good unless you know the layout of the map or your killer has some sort of tracking. Obviously, it's meant to be paired with other perks. However, it being so weak by itself and all of that, it makes up for its weakness by giving you a 25% regression on a generator. So by itself, not too terribly strong, but it makes up for it with a banger of a decrease in one of the generators. That being 20 seconds. Yeah, the percentage of Pop Goes the Weasel is always in regards to full 80 charges, not the current progression of generator, obviously. everybody knows it's just a straight 25% rate, but you know, it's nice to have that extra stuff in the bottom. Well met. Now, you can increase the percentage without any consequence that he says. A killer has to waste a lot of time to get the effect similar to Pop Goes the Weasel. Then the fact that you mentioned it doesn't stack makes it an even higher requirement. I'm not understanding this. If you run it with Pop, then... Well, it says it doesn't stack. It doesn't say that it doesn't activate. So, that might need to be hashed out. He's saying that you can just go ahead and increase the percentages of burnout, because to make it basically on par with Pop Goes the Weasel. Because Pop Goes the Weasel is convoluted and takes a lot of time sink. To get that particular effect. Or he's saying vice versa. He can increase the percentages because Pop Goes the Weasel has an easy activation, and this perk requires a lot of time sink to activate it. Being relying on survivors to drop pallets or going to get breakable walls and trying to get a little buff or a little booster for yourself. There generally aren't a lot of breakable walls on the map. So to be fair, some maps I don't even think have breakable walls. But to be fair, there's not a lot of breakable walls. You know, you can get like 2 to maybe 4. Some might have more, some might have less, like 0. So even doing that, it's only going to guarantee you 1 activation of the particular perk. However, as you're chasing survivors, they're going to be naturally dropping pallets in front of you to try to get away. This perk isn't weak by any form of nature like Pop is. It is a very strong perk. And you can combo it with any type of perk that allows you to do actions faster. Or any type of perks that allows pallets to just instantly break on you when a pallet or when a survivor stuns you with them. So breaking speed, any type of, you know, instant stun, bang, any killers that have anything like that passively that can instantly insta-give pallets, they stack very well with a burnout build being its top. So I'm saying that it's going to take a significant amount of time, regardless if it's Pop or not. There are perks that you can run with Pop, which you have to run perks with Pop. You can't run it by itself unless, you know, you really know the map layout, really know survivor spawns and things like that. Or it's just, you know, a shitty map like Haddonfield where it doesn't really matter. You get that shit in Midwich, good luck, Pop. That's all I gotta say to you, because you gonna be real hurting. Gideon's arguable, but Midwich be a pain to run with Pop. I mean, you can find a generator in 45 seconds, but you're going to be going out of your way to go and go to that particular generator. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, the generators have ores. Obviously, you're a killer. But finding the actual generator that you need to kick and making sure that it has, you know, at least 25% of its progress done. Good luck. So with pop, you almost always have to run another perk, which is generally barbecue and chili. 'Cause barbecue and chili is good in general, but goes well with pop. There are other perks, but I'm just saying one. Burnout, you run burnout on your own, so I don't know why it's being compared to pop that has a strong after effect, but has to be ran with other perks in order for you to get 100% efficiency. Versus this, as long as there's pallets left on the map, you can get the activation. The cooldown's only 60 seconds, so by the time a survivor dead hards, and about 15 seconds afterwards, you can already get your activation back. I used up survivor meta perk, obviously. I didn't want to say like sprint burst or something and lock it to like a 60-second. But you get what I mean. In my honest opinion, I think that this needs a higher activation. If you don't want to have a higher activation, then I would suggest changing the pallets and breakable walls to something else you can get tokens off of. Or completely turning it around and making it a low amount of tokens with a higher effect on the ass end of it. Go for 4 tokens, 6% of each effect, and then have the effect be something that's not particularly tied to survivor actions for the most part. If that's the issue that P-Man, Pieman, whoever the Mr. P is talking about, is it being convoluted and trying to get the activations, then just change what takes to activate the activations and boom, it's redone. Simple. Don't add to a potential problem to try to curve it out and make it straight. Just change the initial problem. You know, if you keep getting F's on your math tests, don't go to another math teacher and fail another math test given by another math teacher because you're dumb. Change the problem, which is your understanding of math. Get a tutor. Go online and learn it in a source that you can learn. Maybe drop down to a previous math, level. Change the problem. Being your brain can't comprehend such high level math. And find a solution in which, you can run through, get these tests that you need passed, and then inevitably graduate. Tweet numbers of Scorch Hook promises. At the start of the trial, Scorch Hooks. When a survivor who has been previously hooked on a Scorch Hook stops repairing, cleansing, searching without completing that action, the generator totem chest is blocked by the entity for 15 seconds. Objects blocked by this perk are shown to you in white. The survivor heals another survivor. This perk no longer affects them until they are next hooked on a Scorch Hook. I actually forgot all about this perk, and there goes that Scorch Hook activation for this perk, because that Scorch Hook activation would activate both of these. And that wouldn't work together. Now I can see whether this does not stack comes into play as well. And if both of these are ran one after another, that is 25 seconds off of a generator. Survivors just can't touch. So you essentially have the same perk twice. I'm surprised Pyman or Mr. P never picked up on that. This is the stronger mother version, and this is a weaker sister version. And all of them, it just has this passive on how you can get rid of it at the bottom. So why not just find a way to combine both of these perks logically and balanced into just one perk? You got the same perk rebalanced with a different activation on it. Slap both of these together, bam bam. Cut the fat, or trim the fat. Rework it all, rebalance it all, and then get one master perk out of this. And I think everything would be, for the most part, fine. There's no point in having two in the same perks. Tweak numbers of Immortal Mark and added deafen effect to Angel's Rend. Immortal Mark. We've gone from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. 3 seconds would allow a 4.6 meters per second killer to run. I don't know what's 4.6 times 3. Something with an 8. Like 13.8 or some shit. Roundabouts of 13.8 meters. So if the killer is on top or chasing somebody and you walk up to them, or if the killer is heading to a particular gin, and you got a survivor sitting there, you can literally just stab them with said syringe and stop them. That is one of the ways that this is exploitable. Now, I mean, it's a decent effect besides what I said last time. I mean, you get 20 seconds of the endurance effect, which is kind of ridiculous. And you've apparently decreased the syringe use time from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. So, even less of an activation time, but still 20 seconds of a effect time. Kind of ridiculous. Especially if you have that particular syringe in your hand and somebody gets you with that borrowed time activation and you use that syringe on top of it and just dash towards an exit door. That is 2 endurance activations that you can get from that. But I'm not too terribly worried about that particular portion. Because there is Stypic Agent, borrowed time, and all kinds of other things. I'm worried about anti-trolling this perk. I don't think that this perk should be able to affect any survivor that is doing an action. So any type of action, generators, chests, totems, etc., etc. Because if somebody's trying to break like a Devour Hope totem and somebody just keeps trolling them, or standing behind them and blocking them on the totem, and then forcing them to essentially just stand there and waiting until they get them the syringe activation. So while they're doing a particular action, opening up exit gates, you can see trolls happening there, etc., etc. They shouldn't be able to get the syringe thing extracted from them. Now, the timer can still count down, but you shouldn't have access to that command while the survivor is actually doing something. Second blocker should be any survivor that is doing a running, rushed, any type of, running type of function. If they're holding down whatever the run button is that is respective to you, they should not be able to be syringed. That'll stop you from being mid-chase with a killer and them jamming that syringe in you and stomping you. That'll stop, I mean, you'll be in like a 50-50 if somebody blocks you in a room or some shit like that. But I mean, they can't just, like I said, stand behind you on a totem and then force you to give it to them. Because at the end of the day, if the killer comes in and slaps, it's going to hit the person with the syringe and not the person on the totem. The person behind the totem, once they get hit, will just be able to go free, probably drop the pallet in front of them so they can't get out anyway, and go about their lives. Well, the person that has the syringe trying to be a dickhead will probably end up going down and getting hooked and then not being saved by that person. So it is what it is. And you can stop them from stabbing you with a particular syringe by just holding the run button. If I don't want somebody stabbing me, I can just be like, no, you're not going to stop me for this a little bit of time, or no, I just don't feel like wanting you stabbing me. Needles and shit like that can trigger people in some ways if it's stabbed into you forcefully. Now, the adrenaline needle and things like that is different. If you don't like it and it triggers you, there's no animations or anything like that unless you particularly go out of your way to actually grab it. This needle being an item that you carry through the game and all of that, and the animations and all of that of you getting their blood, etc., would trigger people. But let's not worry about that. Let's worry more about troll activation. So, doing an action, it keeps you from getting pulled off. And if you're holding down the run button, regardless if a survivor is standing in front of you or not, you cannot get blood if they are holding that button down. That is them telling you no, and no means no. Now, coming back around, now this part needs some sort of activation used on it, which in turn, I would literally just have a pustula fruit be reskinned, or flower be reskinned into a blood flower or something, and have it to where you can just run over to it, when you're within like 16 meters or something of it, its aura is revealed to you. You can just run over to it, stab that motherfucker, and then pull out this blood effect that you're looking for and not happen to go off of another survivor. Or just start with the particular syringe in the game. The entity does it for you, which gives you the endurance status effect, for the whatever 20 seconds, and you don't have to do any type of things. Or do it like the past, during the blight events and things like that, where the more things that you do, the more the syringe fills up. So completing generators fills up syringe, you know, healing other survivor. As you're healing that survivor, you're taking their blood as it drips off of them during a healing action, as opposed to just jamming it in them. There you go. There's a good fix. It requires you to deal the healing action on the survivor, and you can have, you know, pressed L1 button or the L1 button. God damn. I don't even use a PlayStation controller. The active ability button to extract blood while you're healing them. That way it's cancelable like anything else, and you can just add the timer to the particular heal timer. So instead of taking 16 seconds, it takes 19 seconds to heal them up all the way with the syringe effect added. So it's just a nonchalant stab of the needle while you're healing him in that animation. Gets rid of everything that I've talked about, gives you an activation, and you ain't got to worry about trolling anybody. Now, on the other end of that, the only thing you'll have to balance is when there's this character dying. Because you don't want to make it to where you can syringe a dying person and it take even longer for them to get up from the dying state. They gonna be pissed. Absolutely positively pissed. I mean, it makes sense if they're under death hook and you can get an activation before they get sent away. However, I don't think that's very prudent to have this activation increase time on a dying survivor. But a mortal mark can be put into a way to where it's a positive experience and doesn't trigger anybody. And added the deafen effect to Angel's Rend. That's a survivor's perk, yes. This is Peeman stuff. Why would anyone ever use this? There is little point aside from escaping from chase that's a hard maybe if the killer is good enough with audio tracking. Got nothing to do with audio tracking, just turn your sound up. Anybody can do it. Change the method of obtaining the needle. Make audio muffle slightly for the killer for 3 seconds. Allow a survivor to use it from a slightly longer range. Make a larger drawback here. Maybe force the survivor to have the health state to even attempt this blind. Increase that time on the aura reading. Max it out at 7. And that should be it. I care about balance, and this is an amazing concept. Don't let my harsh words fool you. There's just a fine line between practical and thematic. You obviously don't give a shit about balance, Beeman, if you look at any of your past posts that you've gone up and done. So harp about balance and have a shit balancing act as part of it. You're kind of just bullshitting people there. You're bullshitting Critty, trying to say shit about you caring about balance when all you want is the satisfaction of somebody to actually listen to you. I understand you're not a creator. Your creations aren't very good when you throw them up. There are some parts that are good, but all in all, they're not like, yeah, Slam Jamma Bama. So you go to other people's stuff and you go out and you blast and hope that people listen to you with all of these fancy words and things like that. You're almost on the line of gaslighting. Why, like, 7 seconds of ore reading? Let it be used at a longer range, making audio muffled slightly for 3 seconds. This is the one where you stab the killer with a needle, but it doesn't affect people being carried, correct? Yeah, next chest open, gets needle. using the sewing needle within 1 meter of the killer, or have you have stabbed them with them, blinding them for 5 seconds. They will not drop the survivor they're carrying. This also muffles all sound the killer hears for 3 seconds. All other survivors have their auras revealed to the killer for 3 seconds, and the killer recovers, or after the killer recovers from blindness. Looking at this again for like the 3rd time. Again, there are no hard limits here on this particular Angel's Wren. After you complete a generator, you can go and pick up a needle. Obviously, complete gen, open up chest. You can even have another survivor grab that needle. Go and complete a generator, open up chest. You can generally complete about 2 generators that way. Easily. The rest is kind of to your team because you're spending a little bit of your time opening up chests, obviously. But you can get 2 needle activations for the most part, unless you have a build that's based around Angel's Wren. Now, this says after you complete a generator. It doesn't say, after a generator progress is done. So as long as you're there to complete a generator, you can get more activations. You do not have to be at the start of the generator till the end. All you have to do is be there at the end when it completes. That is one bit of wording that would allow this perk to really pop off, especially if you have a Survive with Friends gank squad that all of them use a Shroud of Binding together, and they're doing gens in 28 seconds, but they're all able to consecutively blind you, or blind killer, for 5 seconds a piece. That is 20 seconds worth of blindness. And only thing the killer gets after that 20 seconds of blindness is aura reading for 3 seconds. Does that not make any lick of sense for exploitation? Even if it's just the Survive with Friends, group of 2, and they work on generators together, which would be less efficient, but more efficient than an entire group doing gens. Like me and Macho actually played this game the other day, and we ended up knocking out 2 generators. Actually, no, we ended up knocking out 3 generators. We worked on 1 together, then we split up and did a generator apiece, and then GTFO'd. During those activations, we could have easily found a chest and opened it. I mean, there's always, if you don't know where any chests are on the map and you're fairly new to the game, there's always kill shack chest. And if you know the the locations of where chests can spawn in the game, which I do for the most part, there's some maps that I still have yet to know, like the Artist's new map and things like that. But I mean, maps are only so big. And chests can only be put in, specific areas, because they don't make sense in other ones. You can narrow it down. So, if you think about this perk times 2, times 3, or times 4, you understand that it's heavily exploitable. So, one thing that needs to be added is the fact that after this killer gets blinded, he gets some sort of effect. I don't know, the effect of rage or the effect of vengeance or something like that that prevents him from being blinded for another, 30 to 60 seconds. So they can't just Ragtag blind them. Obviously, this effect's going to prevent flashlight stuns and things like that. That's a whole nother basket of things if they have those particular needles and have flashlights, because you can just flashlight, flashlight, flashlight. If the killer looks away from the flashlight, walk up and hit him with a needle. Then that person runs and grabs their flashlight that they sat down and have a huge gang bang of just flashlight stuns or blinds and needle stuns. Now, my question comes in as, if the killer is good at audio tracking, why does it matter? I mean, what part of that does it matter? After you blind them, you have 5 seconds to put any obstacle in between you and that particular killer. And it doesn't matter how good of audio tracking they have, if they smack into a fucking wall or a rock or some shit like that, then navigating around that shit's going to take time and it's going to give them space, especially if you're smart about your pathing. You blind the killer, jump through a window, and then dip. The killer, the audio track, you has to jump or has to hop the window, which takes time. Then they have to turn their sound all the way up and listen very, very careful if you're not already out of range and try to track that shit. This is one of the reasons why when people blind people with flashlights, the killers are able to immediately get back on chase with them. A flashlight blind doesn't last long. It's like for up to like 2.5 to 3 seconds. As long as I hear the direction that you're running out of, 2 seconds, whether or not I'm running at a wall or not, I still have the area of where you're going. And then to be able to follow you. So the deafening part and all of that is just P-Man being a little bitch about, oh, I blinded killer. Oh man, I blinded the killer out in the middle of a field where there's no obstacles. Oh man, this killer's still following me, pissed. Oh no. The killer literally is looking at me and right in front of me. Now he's mad because I blinded him, and oh no, I just got hit and I went down. Oh, woe is me, woe is me. If only I wouldn't have ran in a straight line with killer after me and only would have used a pallet or window or any type of 360 effects or anything like that to confuse the hell out of the killer. Woe is me. Anything that's in the game. If only you'd used it. Woe is me. If only I would have just act like I was running in a direction and then crouched and watched as the killer walked off into the sunset. Oh my. Woe is me. Woe is me. Get over it. There is no deafening effect that needs to be added to it. What this is player exploitation. You don't need to design your perk to be non-exploitative because the game has exploitations. If a survivor has a stretch screen resolution, or it's going to be different. If a killer has a stretch screen, well, I decreased, so a constricted screen resolution, it makes it harder to blind them. While stretch screens resolution on Survivor makes it easier for them to see and reveal Ghostface, and they have that extra, can see over walls and things like that. The game doesn't need to be balanced around those potential exploits, like people sound boosting their audio and things like that. You don't need to design around that, and you shouldn't design around that. It's got nothing to do with balance when people are exploiting the game mechanics. Don't worry about that shit. Think about base game balancing, base games implementation. And if it comes down to where it needs to be done, behavior will take care of it. Exploitations, that's behavior side. That's what they're paid for. That's part of their game. It's what they do. They can stop it if they want to. Let them worry about that shit. Easiest way to fix it is before a game while you have this egregious freaking load time and all of that. Have it send a command to reset resolution. Now, what that's going to do, in most cases, is going to make people's games crash. And when that person crashes while loading up and all of that, you give them the same thing as a ban in a match. You give them that, 15-minute ban or whatever the hell it gets that stacks up and stacks up. And every time, before they go into a match, change the resolution. Send it through. Usually resolution changes require a restart or something like that, or crashes the game, or something crazy. If somebody's resolution is already set to whatever it's supposed to be, obviously it's going to come back as, regular code. That resolution, I don't know. Well, it'd be check for resolution, and it would be whatever resolution that the game allows you to set to. If it finds one of those particular resolutions, then it will come back, or the code will end. If it doesn't find any of those particular resolutions, it'll force a change of resolution to whatever behavior wants it to be. They can force set your resolution to, 1 by 1. They can reset it to, something stupid to where you're essentially, unable to see anything. It can set your resolution to anything crazily for anybody that's using stretch resolution. But behavior does not care. They allowed it to be ran in tournaments and things like that. They allow killers to run them. They allow survivors to run them, things like that. So the exploitations of the particular games allowed by behavior. So if you make a perk designed around that, or designed that can be exploited the same way, then just keep in mind that that's going to happen sometimes. Don't add in all of these clauses for that shit. Just let it go. Let it go. Now then. I kinda half agree with changing the how you acquire the sewing needle. Also, why sewing needle instead of like a poison needle? Because it would have to be some sort of poison to induce blindness, not just a regular sewing needle. Because if you stab somebody in the eye with a sewing needle, and I'm talking about a legitimate sewing needle, they ain't gonna be seeing out of that bitch. Not for a long time. It ain't gonna be no 5 seconds. I guarantee you that. So the item itself don't necessarily make too much sense. And then requiring or acquiring it out of a chest is kind of a question mark. You should definitely make it to where you can acquire it somewhere else. As of now, you really only got a couple of options, chest and then the locker hops to get like the flashbangs and things like that. But I mean, you could possibly incorporate it some other way, or just have you start with it. Item lock you, essentially. You can only use it after a generator gets completed. However, the way you start with it, it keeps you from getting any items. So if you want to use this OP ability and all of that, it locks your item slot until you complete a generator. Then you get this tool. Prevents you from using any other items or bringing any other items with you when you're using that particular perk. That'd be a little bit more of a balancer because you have to go all in and actually try to get the needle activations and things like that. Also, I don't see this ever being able to be activated more than twice a trial, if not even once. Once is negotiable, twice, no more than twice. Because that's almost ground for a rage quit after the killer gets hit by that shit twice. But I guarantee you, anybody running this perk's gonna get tunneled and face camped anyway. It's gonna be considered the hyper bad manners perk. Anybody running it's not gonna have any respect through the community, and they're just gonna be tunneled out. And survivors are gonna be teabagging around the hook as you get sent on your way for using kind of a scumbag perk. And then on the bottom, I've already said it before, well, besides getting rid of the muffled sound. And even the muffle effect doesn't completely get rid of the sound. Anybody that has boosted sound can hear through the muffled effect, so you're not even getting rid of the sound exploits. The all survivors ore is being revealed because one survivor's a dumbass and ran this particular perk. Ain't savvy. Fun. Anywhere near that action happening, that survivor does it, then hides in a corner or something, and the killer sees me, because I just happen to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time, I'm gonna be pissed. Or if I'm doing a challenge or doing, generators and doing my job, and now the killer knows exactly where I am for no goddamn reason known to me. Because survivors don't know when they're having their auras read or auras read. There's no indication. It just happens. If I'm chilling out and a stealth killer or somebody, I'm hiding, or healing or doing something. Or worst case scenario, you just escaped a chase and somebody used their needle to try and help you escape said chase. And now the killer's even more angrier because he just got blinded, and I end up taking the heat because somebody tried to play hero. I'm gonna be pissed. Absolutely, positively pissed. And the one thing that pisses me off in Dead by Daylight is when a survivor interferes with my little survivor bubble that I have. If I'm running killer, go do gens. Stay away from me. If I'm doing a gen and it's towards the beginning of a match, get away from me. Go to your own gen. Don't stack up on gens and have three of us doing gens because it's very highly inefficient. Walk away. Go to another gen. And don't go to the nearest gen if there's already two survivors on the nearest gens because you're just going for a 3-gen situation. Use your brain. It's towards the end. I don't care. Hop on it. Let's get it done. Beginning? No. If I'm trying to do something, don't walk over and try to see what I'm doing and hey, dude, all this other shit. Like, leave me alone. I'm in my own world. I'm doing my own thing. Go do something else. If we're all messing around and trying to figure things out, go do something else. I ain't got time to wait on you to try to do what I'm doing and fail 3 times before I can get another attempt. Like, I'm trying to do specifically what I'm trying to do. Get out of here, son. Nobody wants you here. But that is the third visit on the demon. I said I stopped what I was doing to do these reviews. I was actually in the middle of map designing and things like that. That's what I spent the entirety of the night doing, is map design. I was like, it's around about time for Dead by Daylight review, so I need to stop doing what I'm doing, hop on. I don't know if I'm going to go back though, because now that I've stopped, I'm kind of like, yeah, I've put a lot of hours into this, and yeah, I don't really want to do that again. Hmm. Um, what tier is New Gearhead? Hey, ODQ. Long time no see, buddy. Long time no see. Four new status effect ideas. Wondering where RDQ went. I knew we already have a lot, but I don't care. So here's my ideas. If you have any of your own status effect ideas, feel free to share them and feel free to criticize these. Paranora. Paranoia. A new debuff that causes any afflicted survivor to scream when they themselves detect loud noises. This debuff will pause when performing an action, but goes away rather quickly in most cases. Loud noises like bolts and fast actions like jumping in a locker, throwing down pallets, things like that, or loud noises like Huntress's hatchet coming near you, killer coming through. Well, if I could stack on an alternative paranoia, I'd make it the where while paranoia is in effect, survivors cannot perform any actions when within a killer terror radius. Specifically terror radius, not within X amount of meters, but only in terror radius since you're paranoid. You wouldn't be working on generators while you're paranoid if you heard or if you felt the presence of a killer. Let's see, survivors have a unique list of loud noises that can make. Oh, he actually goes over it. I knew I liked you, RDQ. That can be made to trigger the scream. Speed volts, damaging a generator, exploding generator, survivor being damaged down, killer missing a basic attack, survivor, speed heighten and locker, fall stun for survivor, pallet breaking, firecracker, explosion, etc., etc. I'm glad you didn't mention flashbang, because that would kind of be kind of funny to throw down a flashbang and immediately scream in fear from it. Deafened. Deafened status effect already exists, so let's just name this temporarily to quieted. The player cannot hear anything, meaning survivors can't. That is just deaf. That's not deafened. That's just deaf. Eardrum explosion. The player cannot hear anything, meaning survivors can't detect the terror radius and killers can't detect loud noises. Well, terror radius wise, that's just oblivious. Killers can't detect loud noises. It doesn't work when applied to killers because audio boosting, and if it is that the killer cannot hear any noise at all, it's not fair to the killer because you got to think about it. Survivors getting deafened affects a 1 out of 4 of the piece of the pie. A killer getting deafened affects the entire pie. So you're getting 4 times the value applying it to a killer than on a measly survivor. That's why you shouldn't interfere with the base game of Dead by Daylight. Because as soon as that killer is unable to detect loud noises, all chases have efficiently come to an end. The killer can't do anything except for either try to picture the way the survivor's going to go and try to hopefully pseudo follow them, or just stand there looking up so they can't get flashlight stunned and continue the chain stuns and just look up. At that time, if it's a decent amount of time, a survivor can easily just crouch out and leave or run around an area, a corner or something, do whatever they need to do to get away or just straight up sprint away. Perks like urban invasion and things like that. Urban evasion, I guess quick and quiet doesn't matter because they can't hear you vaulting anything. But urban evasion comes very, very, very much hand in hand with it. Like with Critty's perk with the needle. You can just stab somebody, then use urban evasion to get away at 90% speed. And you're gone. There's nothing they can do. You can go around corners faster than they can check corners most cases if you use your third person camera. So, when getting rid of killer hearing is questionable. Now, there is Blast Mine, which the killer knows every generator that he kicks, he can be Blast Mine. But the thing about it is part of the animation. If you kick said generator, which is the masking, by the way, of sound as you go to kick the generator, the Blast Mine, well, blows up. It stops you from kicking the generator as soon as it blows up. Boom. You've been Blast Mine. Most people continue to kick the generator again because, well, there's nothing really else you can do. And by the time you get done kicking the generator and all of that, you are able to move. Flashbang are jokes. The only way you can get a flashbang is if you stop a killer in animation. And again, the flashbang goes off as soon as you finish whatever the hell or as you're finishing the animation that happens. So you already don't know what's around you or anything like that. So you just wait a couple of seconds and then you move on. It's not interfering with chases and things like that unless you're dumb enough to actually say, oh, what's that that he dropped? And then get blinded by it. Flashbang ain't good. Flashlight ain't good. All of that stuff's not good unless you are particularly stuck in animation or very prone to getting stunned, aka nurse, wraith, things like that. But I mean, they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. Shrouded. Survivors are fully cloaked from the killer, hiding their auras and scratch marks from the killer. Essentially what Boone Shadow Step does right now. Why not just call the status effect Shadow Step then? I mean, Shrouded makes sense too, but heck, name it from what it came from. Shadow Step. Fair enough. Drowsy, a survivor vision warbles around the edges and they cannot see the killer's red stain. Well, that's oblivious with a warbled screen. Skill checks have minus 10% good skill check zones, which is a perk combined to that too. Injured and hook survivors cannot have this status effect. Um, why not just have survivors yawn? And then I guess you can have the vision warble around the edge of the screens every once in a while. But not a constant continuous thing because motion sickness is a thing. This is why they use screen effects over the top. Instead of having a warbling vision, you'll have just like a sort of blackened screen around the edges. to show your drowsiness, and as you're falling asleep, the darkens filter that they have around the edges will come down and then it'll disappear. And then every once in a while it'll come down and then disappear. So making them yawn and then doing that, I can agree with. But you don't want to invoke any motion sickness, and you don't want to add a whole bunch of things that can be achieved through perks in as well. Hello, Galanonim. Welcome. One of each of my ideas, I think Paranoia and Deafen need to be added together, and Hearing should be removed since Deafen would do essentially the same thing, just without the high-pitched noise. That noise would hurt my ears, so I would prefer Deafen. I don't know what you're talking about a high-pitched noise, but when the perk knockout hits you, and you get that deafened effect, there isn't a loud, it just goes when you're down. There is no loud noise. At least not that I'm aware of. And if it's something that hurts your ears, then you should probably turn your sound down to an acceptable level and stop doing what metagamers do and sound boost their game so they can hear everything. There is another thing. Somebody brought the Ice Queen back to life again. No, well, Mooks did. I got a new killer called the Developer. The loudest noise. I said people complain about the doctor being too loud and everything else being too loud, and I'm like, turn your surround sound off, your bass boost and all of that. The Nemesis tier notification, that shit is loud. And I don't even have my sound turned up that much and I can still hear it. Yeah, that Nemesis tier notification is ridiculously sound. Or it's loud. Even if you're on regular, acceptable sounds. It's not like hurts ears loud, but it is jarring to just randomly hear out of nowhere. New killer called the Developer. You're the original designer of these trials, and your tear radius alone causes survivors to yell and scream at you. You just want to walk around the map fixing glitches and bugs, but no matter how fast you are, they'll keep complaining. Kind of funny, but you're going to ruin people's immersions. This is obviously a meme, so I'm not going to go deep into that. Everybody thinks it's funny, things like that, which it is kind of funny. I know that feeling too. When you're actually actively working on your game and somebody's like, oh, this shit's broken. You need to fix this one step. The one step here at the bottom. Every time I get stuck on it, dude, and I have to jump it. Fix the one step, please. And I'm like, I'm fixing the trowel that broke. I'm fixing the AI so they don't get stuck on walls anymore. I'm fixing the water glitch spot that everybody uses to get inside the map. I'm trying to update the game, from Christmas time to springtime. I'm trying to do this, that, and another, and you're talking to me about a fucking step. True story, by the way. Step. One fucking step that as he's going through spawn, sometimes you clip on it if you're turned sideways and you have to jump. Motherfucker can't walk up the steps straight. Nah, he's got to look around while he's walking. Like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Just out of precedence, that shit's never gonna get fixed. Another person talking about Minecraft cosmetics for survivors, or it's the same post brought back to life. I do not know. I am tired of seeing it. It's literally just the same thing over and over. Um, Woe is me. I've ran out of content to review. Woe is me. I'm going to have to get off for the day. An hour and a half is enough. I ain't slept. I've been up all night like usual. It's becoming a thing now. Generally, it's only been up like 12 hours or something like this, but I think I've been up for, well, since 8 p.m. last night, so we're going on a lot. Okay, mate, I will focus more on my concept. Heck yeah! You ain't missed much during this review. I went over. What did I go over? I know I hopped back into Critty's perk and looked at the perks. Oh, I thought I answered the gearhead thing. I went into Critty's thing, talked about the perks in more detail. I went over the 4 status perk idea. I skipped the developer because it was a meme post, and that's about all I did today. So, nothing eventful happened today, and I don't recommend actually going in and looking in or reading or even listening to the particular stream. It's just the same, me repeating myself over and over and over. I was because I wanted to remake my perk ideas into a whole chapter. Heck yeah. Mm. The new thing people are doing are making crappy maps that aren't labeled properly and aren't really well thought out. But it's new. By the way, if I don't wake up late, I have planned on playing Friday Night Funkin' either later in the afternoon, well, late in the afternoon, late at night, or in the morning if I don't fall asleep or something weird happens. So Friday Night Funkin' should be the next thing on the list. Now that I have Clone Hero, I can actually just transition from Friday Night Funkin' to Clone Hero if the stream comes out too short. So we can be looking at around an hour or so of the combined content if I just keep getting clapped by Tank Guy. And the Roblox server or something's jank, I can just go to Clone Hero as a backup. Well, remember my first ideas. It was pretty unbalanced too. See ya. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the worst of us. That's what makes us us. But as always, supplement your lifestyle. And I'll hopefully see you sometime soon. Peace.